want to say that we are not using microphones tonight. So if you have hearing issues, especially with the fan that's running to keep us cool, just come forward, come closer, okay? Dr. Lai is a teacher, has a good speaking voice, but if you have trouble hearing, just move forward, okay? So Dr. Lai is a Dorje Lungpan in the Drikung Adyu Tibetan lineage, which means that he's a high-level teacher. And he's also the spiritual director of the Urban Dharma of North Carolina in Asheville. And that's a center like us, kind of, I mean, bigger a little bit, but that's his home place, and teaches people in all over the world, Mexico, Malaysia, Guatemala, Peru, yeah. So we're lucky to have him here. He's been coming to EBS for quite some time. Very beloved. We have a group that meets Sunday mornings that are students of his, and he zooms in with that group periodically and leads us through book studies. So you should know that that's an ongoing option. I want to, at some point, we'll talk about his Drikung Forest Hermitage project. I'm going to put this binder in the front of in the lobby so you can take a look at it. But it's a new project that he's working on. It's a residential center in North Carolina. And very, very exciting, very interesting. And tonight he's talking to us about medicine Buddha. And I want to say, he wants to say that the talk tonight is self-contained. If this is what you can do tonight, do that. But if it interests you and you want to stay for the weekend, there is still room to do that if you'd like to stay and do the weekend, which is also focused on medicine Buddha. So, with that said. Well, okay, you're right. Thank you.
Usually there's some kind of housekeeping.
Okay, so we are on Zoom and we are recording. So if you're a note taker, you can relax and maybe watch the video later, or just sit back and chill. Because we are recording it, we will post the videos to our YouTube channel after we sort of get them up and running in a little bit. We'll let you know about that. And if you are doing the weekend and have not yet paid your registration fees, you can take care of that tomorrow. For people that are doing the weekend, we are opening the doors at 8 a.m. tomorrow and start at 9. Bring a bag lunch, bring your bell and dorje and mala if you have those things, and we'll give you the liturgy that you need to practice.
If you don't know what those things are, don't worry.
Don't worry about it. You don't know. They're really just for thinking. Say something stupid. All right, so that's it. Oh yes, thank you.
I don't speak any Spanish. I teach in Latin America. I have interpreters. So one time they were telling me that at the end of some gathering, weekly gathering to practice, they announce, they say, for next meeting, bring your sadhana. Everyone sort of assumed everybody knew what sadhana was. Following week, this new person that was there that week came with his pajamas. And felt really out of place. And they had a good laugh. It was like, I was wondering, why? He didn't wear, he brought, so not that awkward, but he brought his pajamas. So, if you don't know what bell, dorje, and mala, don't worry about it. We'll be fine. So anyway, good evening to everyone. Glad you're able to come out on this evening. The skies let down some rain this afternoon and cool things out a little bit. So I think tomorrow should be good. So temperature-wise, I think it should be good. So there's a lot of heat, if you just listen to the news. There's no disputing that there's a lot of heat. Maybe one could argue what is the source of that heat and what is behind all of that. But definitely there's no argument that right now in this world, whatever your theories of where the heat comes from, there's a lot of heat. In particular, the Buddhist tradition says that the external world that we experience, the external world that we live in, is the result of our inner worlds. So that statement, even among different Buddhist traditions, is understood and interpreted on varying degrees. Some Buddhist traditions will go all the way to say, no, it's really just whatever is in your inner world. That's the extent of the reality of the external. But even without going to that extent, right, which sometimes it's called, like in Western philosophical terms, it's called idealism, that there's no material world out there, and it's all just, kind of projections of the inner world. Now, even without needing to go in that direction, again, I think where we can all agree on is our perception is a big part in experiencing what's going on. And if you want to quantify it, maybe at the very least, right, you have to say 50% is the material reality, which we think must be real, right? If you can see it, if you can touch it, it's real. Okay, fine. 50% of what we experience, has to do with what's out there. But then there's at least another 50% that is the result of our perception. Now think back in all the education that you received, however much formal education that you have received. Would you say that it breaks down to about 50%? Being educated about the external world and being educated about your inner world? Even if you had hippy-dippy parents or pre-hippy-dippy New Age parents, probably not. It's just not set up that way. And then you say, well, it was informal. But even informally, would you say about 50% of your informal education? No. So, we're very good, and thank goodness, I think developments in material sciences and in technology has both some of this heat and also looking for solutions to this heat. That's good. And people are talking about that. And people are coming up with proposals and everything on how to solve that. But that's not my department. I'm here to advocate for the other side. And not as in the other side, as in opposition to this side. But I belong to that group that our job is to remind people, let's talk about the other 50%. So the other 50%, in the second formal teaching that the Buddha gave, is it the second? Close enough. Let's just say second. But now that I think of it, it cannot be the second. Anyway, today in the Tibetan Himalayan Buddhist traditions commemorates the day that the Buddha gave the first formal teaching to the world. After Siddhartha woke up, awakened, and became the awakened one, which is what Buddha means. It said that he taught these 5 ascetics who after that first teaching became his first 5 disciples. So today is the day, they say, that event happened more than 2,500 years ago. And on that occasion, the Buddha taught what is known as the Four Noble Truths, which I think all of you have some familiarity with the Four Noble Truths, right? Yes? The truth about suffering or dissatisfaction. The truth about suffering or dissatisfaction. Then the truth about the cause of this. And the cause, the Buddha, in this particular teaching, he identified the cause as literally thirst. Thirsting for sensory experiences, thirsting for existence, and the third one is thirsting for non-existence. So less literally translated as grasping. Then, of course, in the next 45 years of his teachings, he elaborated greatly on this cause of suffering. Then slowly, it got worked out into a more cohesive explanation of what we call the 3 poisons. Out of ignorance arises attachment and aversion. Out of ignorance, meaning out of not understanding what is it that we are seeing here. Out of that misunderstanding, out of that misperception, then we respond to whatever we think is going on with either like or don't like, attachment, aversion, want more, don't want any. So the push and the pull, the chasing after, the running away from, all of that. But at this first teaching, he primarily identified grasping as the direct cause of dissatisfaction and suffering. Third noble truth is, he says, that this can end. So it's called the noble truth of cessation. There's an end to this. So the first 2 noble truths is bad news. The second 2 noble truths is good news. Yes, this can end. This is not necessary. So the third noble truth is cessation. And the fourth noble truth is the path. Meaning the method, meaning the way, meaning the cause. What is the cause that leads to the end of suffering or dissatisfaction? Then it's the process of waking up. And in that teaching, he laid out what's known as the Noble Eightfold Path. Right understanding, right thoughts, right speech, action, livelihood, effort, mindfulness, concentration. 8. We'll have a quiz. If you score higher than 50%, you get 50% of your donation back. So he taught basically the cause and effect of happiness and suffering. First noble truth is suffering. First two noble truths is suffering. Third and fourth noble truth pertains to happiness. And cause and effect of suffering, cause and effect of happiness. So the Buddhist system, one of its major kind of like underlying principles is causality. So that we say, things don't just happen. When you drive around in a bus on like these narrow highways in northern India, in Ladakh especially, there are these like clever signs by the road. I'm trying to remember some of it. Something about like there's one, a little kind of sexist, I suppose, like, honey, I like your curves, but slow down. Oh, something like that. But the one that is related to this is basically it says, accidents are caused. So causality. Accidents are caused. But we say, oh, it's an accident, as if like nobody caused it, No, even accidents are caused. So causality. So this is an approach, a way of understanding things, that things happen due to causes and conditions coming together, and as a result of causes and conditions coming together, then a particular result comes. So, first teaching. Supposedly second teaching, or according to my bad memory, second teaching, was a teaching called Everything is Burning. Or maybe it was just the second teaching that came with a name, right? In between the first and second teachings, he taught many people, but it was never mentioned, the title. But the second teaching with a title to it is this discourse, is this teaching that he gave that says, everything is burning. And he gave that teaching in the context of converting a group of fire worshippers. And in India, there were various spiritual religious traditions. It said that one day the Buddha woke up and he said, the time is right for these fire worshippers to see the truth. So he went and knocked on the door and said, do you want the good news that I have? Buddha as Jehovah's Witness. Would you like some literature? So he went and eventually he gave this teaching. This is after he surprised them by surviving the night, sleeping in the temple. So he said, he pretended to be one of these wandering ascetics. He told his disciples, don't come with me. I'm going alone. And so then he came to these fire worshippers and he said, I'm on my way somewhere. It's getting late. Could I sleep in there? And they said, no, you don't want to go sleep in there. He said, why? He says, that's our sacred temple. We don't mind people sleeping in there or going in there, except that there is a poisonous snake, a gigantic poisonous snake that guards the holy fire. So it's very dangerous. He said, it's okay. I'll be careful. They're like, no, you're not going to survive. He said, it's okay. Long story short, next morning he came out alive. The snake became a pet. So they were impressed. So then he said, I'll stick around a little longer. I kind of like it here. Can I stay a few more days? They said, yeah. Then he said, put me to work. I want to be useful. And they said, okay, we need people to gather and to cut wood for the sacred fire. He said, okay, I'll do that. So he became friends with them. Then eventually he gave this discourse called Everything is Burning. So in that discourse about everything is burning, he says, the outside world is burning. The outside world is burning because the inside world is burning. Everything is in flames. And he says, your body is in flames. Translation, inflammation. Go to the health food store. Somebody can tell you the whole day what are the causes and the solutions of inflammation. Everything is inflamed. The body is inflamed. The mind is inflamed. And because both body and mind is inflamed, the external world is burning. So of course he's saying, don't worship the fire. Metaphorically saying. Who sang that song, We Didn't Start the Fire? Billy Joel. He was wrong. We did start it. Good song, but we started the fire. You started the fire. I started the fire. And so, again, thank goodness there are people trying to figure out how to put out the external fires. But we can't just wait for people to put out external fires if we keep feeding the fires that are burning within us. So the principle of medicine Buddha practice essentially is no different from any other Buddhist practice. It's just something sexier. Ooh, medicine Buddha. Yeah. Essentially, it is, how do we put out this inner fire of ignorance, attachment, and aversion? How do we extinguish that fire? How do we extinguish those fires so that body and mind can cool down? Nirvana, in fact, it's a metaphor. Nirvana literally means to extinguish. Unfortunately, it has led to misunderstanding that the goal of Buddhist practice is to become extinct. But there was a particular cultural context, which is the world is burning and burning and burning. So to extinguish meant to cool down. So even 2,500 years ago, Buddhist texts were complaining about pollution, complaining about trash, complaining about rivers being contaminated, complaining about forest fires, even 2,500 years ago. Of course, it's all relative. Relative to what you are used to, relative to what they remembered. Things were getting bad. The fires were burning. So then the Buddha used that circumstance and say, these fires within us is at least 50% responsible for the fires that are burning out there. And quite literally now, we understand more the mechanics of the fire, of the heat out there. And I would submit, maybe you have different theories, that it is due to the inner fires that outside is burning. I don't happen to subscribe to necessarily the view that corporations are inherently evil, or there's an evil force, causing this. Simply, innocently, what we like is contributing to the fire. When I grew up in Malaysia, it was always hot. We had AC at home, but maybe twice a month. Dad would say, tonight, turning on the AC. And what that meant was like 4 generations piled into the same bedroom for an AC night. 3 plus the pets, 4. So grandma, mom and dad, us, the pet, 4 generations of piled into a room and turn the AC on. Maybe twice a month. But then when the economic situation improved, and you could afford it, right? Turn it on, you turn it on. And as you turn it on, the heat that is being put out increases. Then suddenly we are in this vicious cycle. And we're stuck, It just begins as innocently as that. No one even, walked around going, hey, how can we destroy this? That's the problem with ignorance. It's a lot easier to have a worldview where some evil force is at work. I mean, in a way, easier. But the Buddha's explanation makes it really challenging, because ignorance is a kind of evil that is really tricky. But we can clear this, the Buddha says. We can clear this. Okay, so this is sort of like the you could say, the basic baseline theoretical background and understanding to external fire, internal fire, and therefore external well-being or unwell, and internal well-being and unwell. Right? So disease, pathology, all of that is the result of the workings of the outer and the inner. So in general, in any type of Buddhism, we all accept that these 3 things, 3 fundamental causes of suffering, as I explained, is known as the 3 poisons. And of the 3 poisons, ignorance or confusion is the basic one, which then gave rise to attachment and aversion, pulling and pushing, because we don't understand what is. So then these 3. Now, these 3 in the Tibetan medical system are known as the distant but ultimate causes of disease. They are the distant as in far, but they are the ultimate causes of disease. All diseases is the result of these 3 poisons. Then the near causes of disease and suffering are what's known as, you could translate them into English as the 3 humors, like the Greek humors, like Greek medical theory. And the 3 humors are lung, pipa, and beken. Lung literally is wind. But wind as a metaphor, again, it's the quality that this energy has. They're talking about three types of energy, and they're called the Niepa. Niepa actually means like something has gone wrong, but it's not necessarily literally something has gone wrong. But the point is like when you begin to look at these three, it's often about these three energies have gone out of balance in each person. So the Niepa are three. So Lung is wind energy. Tripa is bile energy. Bile, and then phlegm. Wind, bile, and phlegm. Lung, tripa, and Becken. Each of us, when we were born, due to our karma, I would say. So karma then is the distant cause of everything. Or it predisposes you. So karma is not fate, but karma does predispose you to have this particular, condition growing up. But it can be changed. But nonetheless, it does predispose you. So your karma, meaning the ripening of actions that you have done in past lifetimes, bring you to a particular set of parents with a particular set of DNA and all of that, and all that combination, you are born. And when you are born, each of us have a distinct combination of these three Niepa. Lung energy, Tripa energy, Becken energy. These three. Lung energy, and then most individuals are a combination of, most individuals, you can divide individuals into the Lung type, Tripa type, and Becken type. And in some cases, combination of two. In some cases, combination of two. Now, I'm not a Tibetan physician at all, but the basic principles kind of underlies medicine Buddha practice. So medicine Buddha practice, or how to relate to medicine Buddha, is related to the Tibetan healing tradition. So you could say even the name medicine Buddha, right? Buddha would be that part about the Four Noble Truths, all of that we talked about, right? The inner world, outer world, the interrelationship, the interdependence between that, so all of that. That's the Buddha side. The medicine side is based on an understanding of what is this. Okay, so now coming back to this. So Lung type, if you are predominantly a Lung type, that also means that of the three poisons, you are predominantly under the control of desire, attachment. Desire or attachment will give you Lung characteristics. What are Lung characteristics? So they identify Lung with an element, wind. Wind. So what is it about wind? It's hard to control. Volatile. Suddenly here, suddenly here. Can put out fire, can increase fire, up and down. And it's all related to desire. When desire is fulfilled, content. When it's not fulfilled, frustrated. And this desire is simply want, I want. Or even, I want things to be this way and not that way. So we're not even talking about, the kind of desires that you don't talk in polite company. Yeah? It's more basic than that. I want things this way and not that way. I want. And feeling that I need to control, and I can control, or I cannot control, and therefore I'm frustrated, that's low. Almost all the Tibetan doctors I've met in my life, whether they are in Asia or they have come over here, they say Westerners, mostly Lung. Interesting. They say Westerners, mostly Lung. Trippa is fiery, fire element, quick to anger, and burns, very active. Now, how is it different from Lung? Lung actually carries characteristics of both the fire, Trippa, and Becken. But what is distinctive about Lung is cannot predict. The Baal type, the Trippa type, reliably fiery, charging all the time, and no ups and downs. Then the third type, Becken, phlegm, is water and earth, sinking, heavy, weighty, lazy. I'm Becken. Like a rock. The good side is like a rock. Not easily affected by changes, whether physical changes or emotional changes. It's like a rock. Bad news, your health, mental and physical health could be deteriorating, oblivious to it. Because like a rock, it doesn't move. Then suddenly it just falls apart. Lung type, there's also some really good news there. They say some of the greatest masters in Tibetan Buddhism, they were all Lung types. That unpredictability also makes them potentially very spiritual and very capable of transformation because they're not stuck. Right? The volatility also means flexibility. If you know how to control that, then it means great potential to change. And change for the good, for the better. But lacking control, then chaotic. So these are the three energies. Now, three energies. Now, when you talk about the three energies, they are directly linked up then to how all of us have these three energies. When I talk about this type, that type, is what is dominant in your life. And also it can change. They say that whatever your type, as you get older, Lung imbalance increases. The mental, the moods.
Can you repeat that?
As people get older, their Lung imbalance increases, no matter what their type, their basic type. They're kind of irritable easily. So like grumpy old man. Didn't start off grumpy, but as you get older, that tends to increase. That's also related to blood pressure going up as you get older. Easily up, down blood pressure. This is lung imbalances. So according to Tibetan Buddhist beliefs, the Buddha, in his great wisdom and effort to relieve suffering, to assist us, to help us, gave not only the science of the mind and of the spirit, if you want to call it that, but also the science of the physical sciences in the healing arts, and then combining these two. So Tibetan doctors, they all have a basic spiritual practice that they do on a daily basis. And it's not limited to medicine Buddha, but normally it is medicine Buddha. So medicine Buddha, so now we go to the realm of the mythic realm. Okay. In my using of the word mythic, I don't mean fake. I don't mean not true. It's just a different way of talking about that which is true. Using analogies, using symbols, using like deep systems of symbols. So medicine Buddha is said to have been an individual who, like you and I, have wandered in this cycle of birth and death, until at one point met a Buddha in his own time, became inspired to make the vow, make the pledge, make the aspiration to achieve full and perfect Buddha for the benefit of others. But because in that lifetime when he made that resolve, he was a physician. And so then there was this interdependence, is how we use. It's what we mean by interdependence. So there was some kind of interdependence there. And so because he came from a background of the healing sciences, so then when he articulated his vow, his aspiration, his promise to become awake, he used medical terms. So that it says that many lifetimes later, as he worked for many lifetimes to fully awaken to become Buddha, all those lifetimes, it was always kind of connected to the healing arts. So that finally when he became Buddha, then the interdependence of medicine Buddha having a specialization, so to say. In some ways, this theme is not that far from the way Catholic saints end up specializing in this and that. Right? Something about their profession, something about their lives, and then they turn to God, and between sinner to saint, yeah? Their profession or their circumstance, right, gives it a particular flavor to their sainthood. And so this myth is universal. The particulars might change from culture to culture. So this is how medicine Buddha became medicine Buddha. Insofar as Buddhas and Buddha's qualities are concerned, we say they are all the same. Now, all Buddhas, if they are Buddhas, have equal ability to do what they need to do to help others. But because of the particular set of interdependencies related to this Buddha, therefore, in what comes into focus for us is the healing powers that not only heals on the level of the distant causes of suffering, which is the 3 poisons, which all Buddhas have that capacity, but also the near causes of suffering, which is the 3 energies. So in engaging in medicine with the practice, so the practice this weekend that I am going to introduce to participants, basically there is a sadhana, which is a means of accomplishment. Literally, that's what it means. So no pajamas needed, but it's a means of accomplishment. So it's a liturgical text that involves the use of imagination visualization. And then within the context of this imagination and visualization, to build up power. What power? Again, ultimately, the power to dispel the three poisons. But in the short term, because of medicine Buddha, then the power to have the side effect of better health. Now we have entered the realm of magic. How do I explain that? I don't really have a lot of explanation. I often say to people like Dharma practitioners, I always say to them, I say, don't count on magic, but don't discount magic. The Buddhist way actually doesn't require magic, but it doesn't mean that magic doesn't happen. And if we think it's magic, it's only because we cannot see so clearly what is going on. For someone who has never seen a microwave and how it works, that's like completely witchcraft. But you and I, we have so normalized a microwave, we don't even think, So if it is magic, it's only because we cannot see exactly what's going on. Now, for this magic, so to say, to happen, you have to build up. So it's like going to the gym. You have to lift. So this weekend is sort of like, New Year. You might get very inspired. Good news. And bad news. Like a few weeks after New Year. The resolution kind of disappears. And then you're like, oh, it's not working. It's very similar. There's no magic pill. You have to build up. You have to build up your immune system. You have to build up power. And you build that up by practicing the method, the sadhana. And practicing the method itself will not work unless you know where you're going. The method is like having a car. But having a car and not knowing where you want to go, you just go in circles. So where you want to go, what is the advantage of where you want to go? That's all you can get from any type of Buddhist practice that happens here. It's all the same. Whether it's, insight meditation, whether it's, mindfulness with Thich Nhat Hanh, whether it's Zen, whether it's Tibetan, as far as that goes, it's all the same. Where you need to go, what is the advantages of getting there, the Four Noble Truths, absolutely no difference. But what car you drive to get there, there is difference. Is it a Cadillac? Is it a Prius? There's a bunch of people in Nashville right now. a little bit afraid of driving their Tesla. The owner's behavior has complicated the virtual signaling of driving around a Tesla. Don't know how much you know about Asheville. So the method is the sadhana. And by relying on that sadhana, you can build up this and create the interdependence to connect with medicine. Okay, so now back up a little. To tell you a little kind of personal story. When I started the center in Asheville, North Carolina, I adamantly refused to offer any programs on medicine for them. I refused to request any medicine Buddha activities from visiting teachers. People asked for it and asked for it. I was like, no. I was an anti-medicine Buddha person, it seems, to people. Why? Because, how many of you know anything about Asheville? Nothing much. People used to go to Asheville to look at hippies. Now people go to Asheville to eat good food and go to breweries, and it's like routinely, like once or twice a year, it will turn up in this list. Right now it's like number 4 best place to retire in America. When I first got there, all these bumper stickers. We still pray, then we still read, then we still whatever. So the pagans are there, there's like, I don't know. Right after, when the pandemic kind of calmed down and we moved our Dharma center and we called for a meeting of all Buddhist teachers, Buddhist facilitators in that area, we had 40 people turn up. Not 40 members, 40 teachers, facilitators of various groups and types. In Asheville, less than 100,000 people, surrounded by old-timers in the mountains. To the credit of the old-timers, it's basically live and let live. This is the Scot-Irish mountain people. Like, don't tell me what to do, I won't tell you what to do. You can prance around naked in your place, I don't care. You want to do headstands naked, that's your business, right? So, surrounded by very old-fashioned, I don't know if I'll say conservative, but of course it's changing, very old-fashioned people, that want to be left alone. And then there's the rest of us who move there and do all kinds of crazy things. And nobody bats an eye, if you want to wear a skirt or not wear a skirt or whatever, walk up and down downtown. My Tibetan friends who come visit, my Lama friends, they're like, this place is kind of strange. Like nobody even notices that I look different, or they're very friendly. I say, yep, that's Asheville. The other thing about Asheville is, go into a cafe, go into a tea house, at least 2/3 of the people in there are certified acupuncturists. The other 15% are massage therapists. And whether they're acupuncturists or massage therapists, they know at least 4 different modalities of healing. So medicine Buddha is hot item. Everybody wants to heal everybody. But everybody is ill. That's also true. Right? It makes sense. We are unwell. We want to heal the world. I resisted. I'm like, no medicine Buddha programs here. Not just to be snarky, you know, although there's a little bit of that. But mostly it's like, no, I was afraid that people misunderstood what medicine Buddha practice is for. It's not another modality to introduce to your practice. You know, you first need to understand that first part, the Four Noble Truths. So for years, you know, even though it wasn't attracting droves of people in, I was like, it's okay. We teach the Dharma, we teach the waking up part first. Until I feel like, you know, we have enough people who understand this, then I bring in the Cadillac. First, convince enough people we need to get somewhere. And why that place is good, and why that place is desirable, why that state of being is what we are all looking for, really. Right? Understand that. So until I felt like our community really understood that, I resisted any and all medicine Buddha practice. So in the last few years, I started to introduce that. And also the other thing is, in the last few years, I've gotten older. And people I know have gotten even older. That's the truth. And everyone is dealing more and more with health issues. I don't think medicine Buddha practice is a substitute for proper medical care. But it can be a very helpful piece. Because at the heart of medicine Buddha practice, that you need to get very clear about is it's saying, first of all, you will die. Your body will fall apart. No question about it. But the healing we are talking about here will continue and can continue. That we have to die, we don't have a choice. That our body is going to fall apart, we don't have a choice. After a certain age, right, it's only one direction the body can go. Really. If we cannot see that, if we cannot accept that, and then we want to do medicine Buddha practice to become youthful forever, you know, then you're just going to become more delusional. So that we are going to die, no question. That our body will fail us, no question. But where there is a question, where a difference can be made is, are you going to die broken or are you going to die whole? Medicine Buddha can make you whole and complete when you leave this life. It's the healing that goes beyond this body and mind. That's where it is not just about. But certainly throughout Tibetan history, all the great doctors of Tibet have used this principle, this energy, if you want to call it that, this mythology of medicine Buddha to enhance their ability to relieve the sufferings of people by becoming good doctors, by being able to diagnose properly, by being able to prescribe medicine that actually helps through the clear seeing, as they say, that is provided by building up this power through medicine practice. So one other story I can tell, just to show kind of culturally how this works, you know, because it's kind of maybe not so clear for you. So my dad, when I was a teenager, I remember, I think probably when I was like 15 or so, he started to have these health emergencies that will happen twice a year, sometimes once a year, usually happens late at night. he will have these real sharp pains, very sharp pain on this side of his body. It will start off with a day sometimes or a night before where he would yawn a lot. And then it will turn into, he gets dizzy, and so dizzy that if he gets up, he will fall, and then the pain comes. Extreme pain. So each time we'll go to the hospital in the middle of the night. No idea. Either the symptoms have gone away, went to see all kinds of specialists, went to another city, to the capital city, Kuala Lumpur, went to Singapore to see specialists, nothing. Cannot figure out what is wrong with him. Until my late teens, then I went to the US. Then I think I was already in graduate school. And I came back, and this gets more and more frequent then. And then each time we can kind of match and track. It's whenever he gets stressed with whatever that's going on. And so for him, stress is when there's big gatherings of people. So when we get close to New Year, when we get close to birthday, it happens. So I was in graduate school at that time. I was back in Malaysia. There was a visiting Lama that came through. And he was well known for his divination. I'm not one that have a lot of faith in these things. I remember when I was a young kid, my mom's favorite pastime is looking for divination and mediums. It's just, kind of middle class Malaysian, Chinese mothers, with my aunt, they'll be like, go to this fortune teller, go to that divination person, One time we went to a divination, a Hindu divination woman. The way she divines is she asks to see basically your driver's license. Yeah, and she'll look at the driver's license and she'll start telling things about you. I was like, it's pretty accurate. And even down to like with my mom that time, we only went to her one time. With my mom, she looked at me and she said, an old friend of yours actually is visiting you right now. But obviously you're not there. And true enough, when we got home, it's uncanny, right? So then everyone in that group would show it's not driver's license, what we call identity card. Like in Malaysia, we have things like this. Everyone uses it. So when you are 13 and above, you need to have one of these cards. So I had one. But then everybody, then she said, what about him? Pointed at me, And I said, no, it's okay. She said, no, you free. Give it to me. So took, and look at it, and she goes, she said to my mom. She didn't want to talk to me. Because I didn't want to listen to her, right? She didn't want to talk to me. She talked to my mom. She said, this son, very religious, have some kind of entity that is protecting him. But he doesn't believe in any of these things that I'm doing. Which is a contradiction, actually, in our world. How can you be religious and not believe in divination and spirits, But she accurately can describe me. Anyway, the Lama came. He was desperate. So I said, can you check and see what's going on with my dad? So he checked and everything. Then he said certain things. And then he said, he needs, according to the divination, he needs to have a ceremony done on his behalf. It's an Amitayus, for those of you who know. It's a longevity deity practice. He said that, that needs to be done. So I said, can you do it? And he said, yes. So we did a whole puja, like a whole evening. Friends came, family, we invited. A couple of months after that, he had another episode. that time taken to the hospital, middle of the night, doctor came back and says, it's liver, cirrhosis of liver, hepatitis. And then when I looked at the symptoms, all the symptoms is classic that he had. But none of the doctors could diagnose what was wrong. But it's not even such an esoteric illness. It was there. But in our terms, we're saying their eyes were covered because of his karma. It did not allow any of these other doctors or these specialists to easily diagnose him and say, that's what's wrong with him. And definitely my family, and you ask me myself, believe that the puja removed those obstacles that prevented the doctor from seeing what was wrong. He was put on medication, the medication to control this. But after 2 years, it completely disappeared. It doesn't have hepatitis. The doctor said, we don't use the word miracle in the medical sciences, but we also know that these things happen, and we simply don't have an explanation. So yeah, so I got to see how, don't count on magic, but don't discount magic. So whatever it is that you do, like whatever spiritual connection that you have, or whatever magic that you have, don't count on it, but know that with the right conditions, it can come and help you. I don't know how to explain it further than this. But there is magic. We need to know how to relate to it. Now, coming back to the Buddhist way, do not for a moment think that this will last. Know the nature of body. The nature of body is that it falls apart. But you don't have to fall apart. You can die broken, or you can die whole. Find your way. I'm not saying this is the only way. Find your way to die complete and whole. That's the best thing that you can do for yourself. That is the best thing you can do for the people that you leave behind. Find your way to die complete and whole. So one of the ways is medicine with it. In fact, medicine with the prayers and rituals are often done in the context of funeral rituals. We don't normally think of that here. We think, Amitabha, like for those of you familiar with the system, do Amitabha practice. But actually, medicine Buddha practice is commonly done for funerary rites. So this notion of healing here with medicine Buddha goes beyond just this healing. Your questions or comments? Where to start?
Yeah.
Start anywhere. Yes, sure.
You say that desire is the method.
Say that again.
You said that desire is the method of, I think that's what you said. You're wanting to, you want to find this state of wholeness or the state of being.
Yes.
And I get that, but I'm always, how can I keep on wanting
Yes.
and it not being contaminated
Oh,
by
yes.
all,
Yes.
more and more
Yes.
of that?
Yes. I didn't say it, but you saw it. I didn't exactly say desire is the method, but you saw the catch-22 that is there. Yeah. So then we say there is skillful desire, then there's unskillful desire. The path that the Buddha set forth consists of the state of being awakened, of being a Buddha, is a state where no desire exists anymore. Yeah? But in order to arrive at a state where there is that desire don't run your life anymore, basically, in order to arrive at that state, you cannot think, you cannot take the approach of, let me start dumping out desires now. Like, today I'm going to get rid of 5, tomorrow I'm going to get rid of another 5, the next day I'm going to get rid of another 4, and by Marie Kondoing your way to, Buddhahood. Not like that. The way to get there is skillfully choose what desires to feed and what desires to starve. So to get to the desireless state, the method is knowing which desires to follow and which not to follow. So, the desire to be free, we feed that one. But even feeding that one, right? When does that become an obsession? No one can quite say, no one has created a desire meter to stick in you to see if you're done yet. Trial and error. When that desire becomes entanglement, you know you have gone too far. And sometimes, when people have read a lot of Buddhist books, they are fighting false demons. I meet many people like this, especially young people. They are sheepish and a little shy talking about their desires. And thank goodness, I don't want to know the details of their desires, But then also, I feel they are like creating, they're fighting false demons. I was like, no, don't worry about that, Like there are much bigger fires to put out. Just leave those things alone. Eventually you'll outgrow them or whatever, it's fine. But then we read Buddhist books, then we have this idea that, to be a Buddhist, you have to be like without desires. No, that's to be a Buddha, not a Buddhist. A Buddhist is simply someone who wants to wake up, And I mean Buddhist, even not the big B, the small b Buddhist. The big B Buddhist is all about, right, identity. It's about pissing off your parents, or your parents are dead, pissing off your kids, I'm going to be Buddhist now. Right? It's like, sorry, can't come to Thanksgiving, I'm vegan now, right? Somehow all that matches, right? I'm not talking about the big B Buddhist, now you have to dress a certain way, your art has changed, it's all Asian looking. No, I'm not talking about that Buddhist. I'm talking about the small b Buddhist, wanting to be free, wanting to wake up, wanting to be able to be good for yourself and others, right? Understanding what are the causes of suffering, and what is suffering and what is happiness, appreciating the difference of that, and say, I don't want to continue with this burdensome baggage of suffering that I'm carrying along, right? If we're able to do that, then this path is simply about do what you can, you know. So you desire to be awake, but you also know, you know, everything has its own time of things coming together. You cannot force it. So this Zen story, a student going to the Zen master and said, you know, if I practice what you teach, you know, how long would it take before I become awake? The teacher says, 10 years. 10 years? What if I work really, really, really hard? The teacher goes, 20 years. That is when that desire has gone in the wrong direction. But just the right amount. And right amount, it's not, you can't get it from a doctor. Your prescription is 3 times a day. No, you have to do it yourself to figure out where is the right, just the right amount of desiring to be free before it becomes, now it will take 20 years because you're working so hard.
What does it mean to die whole?
It means not broken.
What is broken?
What do you think broken?
I'm asking you.
No, you have to die, not me. So your definition of broken is more important than my indoctrinating you. Deep down, we all know what broken and whole is. Don't subscribe to my description. You know what is broken and what is whole. We all know, without using too many words. So be true to that. And know that you don't need to die broken. You can die whole like the king. Yes.
How common is a Buddha? How many are there? I know I've heard we're all Buddha, we're like gonna wake up, but how common is you would say a Buddha? Is it there just one? Is there once every 20 years, one a generation?
First, they say that Buddhas necessarily arise among humans. Okay? Buddhas necessarily arise among humans. I have a suspicion that's because the Buddha was talking to humans. My theory is like, if the Buddha was talking to geckos, then the Buddha would say, Buddhas necessarily arise from geckos. How fortunate you are that you are born a gecko. Anyway, come back to what we can find in the text.
My cat's pretty good, so I get
Okay, yeah, I don't know. Anyway, that's a different discussion or debate. So it says, Buddhas necessarily arise among humans. And then you said, now, how rare is a human? Now, these days with, you know, population outbursts, we think, humans a dime a dozen. But according to the Buddhist view, to obtain a human rebirth is as rare as many analogies given. Like, take a hand of dry peas and throw under the wall. How many of those peas will stick on your wall is the chances of becoming a human, which is none. Even with greasy, sticky Tibetan walls, peas don't stick so easily. Or they say, the appearance of star in the daytime, as rare as that. Then extended analogies. There is a blind turtle that lives in the bottom of the ocean, and then there is a yolk floating in this great ocean, right? A yolk means there's a hole in the middle, or a plank with a hole in the middle. Every 100 years, this blind, not just turtle, blind, you have to add blind. This blind turtle comes up to the surface of the ocean once 100 years and sticks its head up to look at the sky. The chances of that head meeting the hole of the plank or the yolk, it's more likely to happen than for you to be reborn as a human again. Okay, now, how common are Buddhas? One picture, right? Next picture. Within a speck of dust is a new universe. Within that universe, right? All the grains of sand in that universe. In each grain of sand, there is another universe. Within each of those universes, there is a Buddha. And that's just one speck of dust right here. How common are Buddhas? Yes and no. Depending on your view. Buddhas are really, really, really rare. And Buddhas are everywhere, depending on your view. Now this body that we have, that I say, don't forget, it goes only in one direction. It's not reliable. But it's the basis of us feeling that it's me. This body. Now if you close your eyes, you don't have to straighten up. You can just sit however you're sitting. We have been indoctrinated. Once a certain cadence, a certain voice turns on, and certain words turn up, you have to sit up and do this, But it's okay, just relax. But I say close your eyes because then you can imagine better. When you close your eyes, and you think me, then kind of look at that mental image of the form that you're thinking of as me. So take a few moments. I don't want you to work on what is ideal, what you have heard is ideal, or what is right, what is wrong. Lay all that aside. So in a more honest, natural way, close your eyes and say, when you think of I, and you think of a form that you without needing to think about it, you can identify and say, me. Okay, now think of that form. Let your mind kind of focus on that form. Examining it almost like you say you're examining a photo of you. Now, more than a photo, can you imagine that perhaps now somebody have created a wax statue of you, full size? Maybe that statue, has been created to sit exactly as you're sitting now, however you're sitting. And you're examining this form that you can readily, easily identify as me. That's me. Again, just stay there with it. Look closer. If you dare, even look closer, perhaps see the wrinkles that you pretend normally not to be there. Sagging skin or beautiful skin, complexion, all of that. Whatever it is that this form is. Then, from the ground below, imagine a band of light coming up from the ground and starting to encircle bottom part of your body, almost like a snake, like curling around. But as this band of light kind of goes up, it wipes away, your physical form. It slowly goes up, 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 wrapping this body. It's not wrapping like tightly, but basically going up, upwards and upwards, circling, creating almost like an egg shape. And as it goes up, it sweeps away, the form that you have identified as I, as me. It goes up. Above your head, which now has disappeared. Now, instead of your usual form, there is this orb, this crystal orb shaped like an egg. So instead of what you normally identify as me, as my form, my body, now there's a big crystal, egg-shaped, bright, transparent, beaming, glowing. As you breathe in, this egg-shaped body glows brightly. As you breathe out, light streams forth. This is one of many methods available for cleansing the body. Maybe less literally, cleansing our habitual perception of I, me, mine. Simply turning yourself into this big orb of crystal body. Your normal, ordinary body just dissolve, gone, temporarily. So don't need to do for long periods of time, because if you drag it out, your liver insists on coming back, your gallbladder insists on coming back. Separation anxiety, you don't want it to get to that point. So maintain that until you get a feeling like, okay, there's going to start knocking. Stop. So just do short periods of that. And part of the magic going on with this is, we say, if these organs don't exist, disease have no place to latch on. It's up to you to believe if this is going to do anything for you or not. But this is not just dreamed out of nowhere. There are people who have tried this, who said this is helpful. And I can, in a more rational way, say, at the very least, what it does is that you're not so tethered to this. I'm not saying don't take care of this, but you're not dragged around by this. So that when this falls apart, you don't have to suffer so much. You have your crystal egg. And you can live more lightly with this crystal egg. And on this basis of this crystal egg, the technique then is to develop from there into, like this weekend, tomorrow, medicine Buddha. Then within this identifying with the form, we say the Buddha form of medicine Buddha, which is essentially like this Buddha here, but the complexion is blue, beryl, often translated as lapis lazuli, but lapis lazuli is kind of dull, that blue. It's beryl. If you don't know what beryl looks like, just consult all-knowing Google. And you'll see that it's this brilliant, almost like sapphire blue. So that's the color of medicine. So it's essentially like this. Then on the basis of that, this weekend, it's not just like, you might think that this is all just kind of mental. So there are three bodies, we say. There's the physical body, there's the mental body, and then there's the energetic body. In Vajrayana, we call it the Vajra, or the indestructible body. But not indestructible in the normal way we think about indestructible. Indestructible in the sense that there's no essence there in the first place. Therefore, that which has no essence cannot be destroyed. That's the energetic body. And that energetic body can be experienced via the movement of energy. That's why we call it energetic body. And then now it pertains to those three things. Long Tripa Beken. Long Tripa Beken. So there's an internal structure to this Vajra body. What I want to share also this weekend is one very simple but very helpful cleansing of breath that you do first thing when you wake up. Sit on your bed or sit on the floor immediately and do this cleansing. So we won't do it tonight, we don't have time, but basically, right? This. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, down, inhale, exhale. And a particular way of inhaling, a particular way of exhale, to expel stale breath, stale energy. Good way to fully awake, and also a good way to fall asleep. So you also do it at the end of the day to expel the stale breath. And on the mythic level, they say malevolent spirits feed on stale breath. So disease is the manifestation benevolent spirits feeding on stale bread. Tibetan doctors, they know, they say, this is just the folk language that we use to communicate with our patients. For us, we understand them as, disease energy. But when we communicate to our clientele, we use language that they can understand. Just like now, increasingly, the language that we understand and appreciate is psychological. So Buddhist teachers teaching in the West also tend to use psychological terms. But there's a danger to the psychological terms because it's a lot harder to handle psychological states. Somatic states are easier to manage. But in this worldview, psychology, right, and body are not at odds. They are a spectrum. So if you cannot manipulate things to change over here, you can manipulate over here and change it here. And when this changes here, it's going to ripple over here and change here. If the basic method is to work with mind, but mind is not always that easy to work with. We're very naive. The Buddhist critique of Western psychology as it is practiced today is you are naive about how easily you think you can change things. Not that easy. You're naive about that. You're getting a lot of information, you're getting a lot of knowledge about how it works, but where you are failing is you don't understand how complex and how tricky the mind is. So sometimes when we read Buddhist books, especially when it uses very strong psychological language, we can be misled. And then you find yourself even more frustrated. You say, they seem to say that it's so obvious and so easy. How come I'm not seeing any changes? Mistranslation. So, particularly in the Vajrayana tradition, there's a lot of methods involving not purely mind, but body. And one level of body involvement is ritual, it's gestures, it's symbols, which in our general Protestant culture, it's hard to wrap our heads and hands around it. It's like, that papist religion. But, it's a full body experience. So anyway. So at least maybe you can use this egg meditation and do it from time to time. Just not so identified with this as who you are. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, have a good night. And as you leave, maybe give a moment, thank you. May everybody else find, just as I have found some inspiration, maybe some understanding about health and true health. May everyone everywhere, in their own time, sooner rather than later, also find the same. So give some consideration to others as you leave. Good night.
Thank you.
Okay.
My prayer. Hi.